Welcome in, everyone. I am so glad you're joining us today because, well, you are the ultimate learner, and we have a really fascinating deep dive lined up for you.
Yeah, today's stack of sources is honestly one of the most interesting combinations we've ever looked at.
It really is. We are looking at some surprising environmental science trivia, and we're pairing it with this massive, highly detailed collection of professional education notes focused entirely on classroom management.
Which I know sounds like a bizarre pairing at first.
Right. But our mission today is actually uncovering the hidden mechanics of how environments are managed, maintained, and sometimes completely ruined by accident.
Exactly. Whether it's a natural ecosystem or the micro ecosystem of a classroom.
So let's start with the macro environment because
Yeah.
the environment teaches us everything about balance, right?
Oh, absolutely. The fundamental rule of any ecosystem is actions and consequences.
Yeah.
You just can't ignore the underlying connections without causing a collapse.
Like take the flash floods in Metro Manila.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
It is so easy to just blame heavy rainfall, but the sources trace the flooding directly back to the rivers being clogged with waste and just the sheer pressure of overpopulation.
Right, the natural infrastructure doesn't just fail on its own out of nowhere. It gets overwhelmed by unmanaged human behavior.
And there's this other concept in the environmental notes called overdraft, which blew my mind.
Oh, a groundwater issue.
Yeah, it's when we overuse groundwater, especially during the dry summer months, and it empties the subterranean reservoirs faster than nature can refill them.
And the consequence of that is literal land subsidence. The earth actually begins to sink.
Because the water that was holding up the soil structure is just gone.
It's gone, yeah.
Yeah.
Which shows how fragile these systems are. But maybe the most dramatic example of an ecosystem collapsing from a single tiny imbalance is eutrophication.
Okay, that sounds like a highly technical term, but the mechanics are wild. It starts when plant nutrients like nitrates and phosphates from fertilizers or just everyday laundry detergent washed into a closed body of water.
Like a lake. And naturally, you'd think, well, adding nutrients is a good thing.
Right, you'd think the aquatic life would love it.
And at first, it does cause this massive algal bloom. Algae just completely covers the surface.
But then the algae dies.
Yes. And that is the fatal flaw.
Mm.
Because when it dies, bacteria show up to feed on all that dead organic matter.
And to break down that much algae, those bacteria have to multiply at just an explosive rate.
Exactly. And bacteria consume oxygen.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, throwing a massive party where one uninvited guest, the algae, eats all the food, makes a huge mess, and then the cleanup crew has to breathe in every ounce of oxygen in the room just to fix it.
That is a great way to put it.
It just ruins the room for everyone else.
Yeah.
Because the nutrients didn't kill the fish directly, right? The
Yeah.
fish suffocate because the bacteria sucked all the dissolved oxygen out of the water.
The environment completely crashes.
So we see how easily a macro ecosystem can collapse from a single imbalance. How does this connect to our main focus today, the micro ecosystem of a classroom?
Well, if you shrink that massive lake down to a room of 30 people, the mechanics are remarkably similar. A classroom is a delicate, closed system.
Makes sense.
So a single pollutant, like a low-level disruptive behavior, can spread and alter the entire climate. If the person managing that room isn't paying attention, that minor disruption spreads.
It consumes all the oxygen in the room.
Exactly. The learning essentially suffocates.
Wow. Okay, so how does a leader prevent that from happening? The sources talk about this educational behaviorist from 1970, Jacob Koonin.
Yes, Koonin conducted some groundbreaking studies on this exact vulnerability. He was actually teaching a college class called mental hygiene, which was, the 1970s term for mental health.
Right. And he's up there lecturing, and he notices a student all the way in the back row,
Hiding behind a fully open broadsheet newspaper.
just completely ignoring the lecture, a
Oh.
blatant environmental pollutant.
So Koonin stops, and he directly corrects this one student. He asks him to put the paper away, and the student does.
But Koonin noticed something else, didn't he?
He did. He wasn't just watching the newspaper guy. He was watching the rest of the room. And he observed what he called the ripple effect.
The ripple effect.
Yeah, because other students who were doing their own minor things, whispering, passing notes, they immediately stopped and started paying attention.
Just because he corrected the one guy.
Exactly. Correcting one misbehavior positively influenced the whole group. Discipline isn't a one-to-one transaction, it's a broadcast.
But that broadcast relies on a concept that Koonin called with-itness, right? Which I love. It's that classic idea of a teacher having eyes in the back of their head. They perceive everything, everywhere, all at once.
And the crucial psychological part of with-itness is that it doesn't actually matter what the teacher knows. It only matters what the students believe the teacher knows.
Oh, that's interesting. It's almost like a high-tech radar system or like a seasoned lifeguard scanning a crowded pool.
That's a perfect analogy.
They aren't just locking eyes on the kid making the biggest splash. Their head is on a swivel, constantly scanning the surface of the water so the swimmers know they're being watched.
And they self-regulate their behavior. That constant scanning keeps the momentum going. Because when a teacher lacks with-itness, they commit movement management errors.
Movement management errors. These are the mistakes that kill the lesson's momentum, right?
Yes, they introduce pollutants into the ecosystem. There are four main ones Kunin identified. First is the dangle.
The dangle.
Yeah, that's when a teacher just leaves the topic hanging in midair to introduce completely unrelated material.
Oh, that sounds confusing.
It creates cognitive whiplash.
Yeah.
Then there's a flip-flop. This is jumping back to leftover material from a previous lesson unexpectedly.
I have definitely sat through meetings that felt like one giant flip-flop. The topic feels closed, you filed it away, and suddenly you are dragged backward.
It creates immense frustration. The third error is the thrust. That happens when a leader forgets to give clear instructions, bursts into an activity before people are ready, and then has to run around re-explaining everything individually.
Total chaos.
Guaranteed chaos. And finally, being stimulus-bound. Get distracted by an outside stimulus like a noise outside and drawing the whole room's attention to it.
So the lifeguard stops scanning the pool to point out a cool bird in the sky, and suddenly 3 kids are drowning.
Precisely. And these movement errors matter because they lead to what behaviorists call satiation.
Meaning the group is just exhausted.
Yeah, they focus on one thing for too long or the momentum jerks around so much they lose interest.
Yeah.
Keeping the group engaged prevents satiation. It stops the algae from blooming in the first place.
But smooth transitions still require a specific climate, right? The leader has to set the weather for the room, and the sources break down 3 distinct management styles.
Yes, the first is autocratic or authoritarian.
The dictator approach.
Right. Highly demanding, zero warmth. It relies on fear, gets compliance, sure, but it breeds anxiety and resentment.
It doesn't teach self-control, it just teaches blind obedience to a threat.
Exactly. On the opposite end is laissez-faire, the devil-may-care approach.
Total detachment.
The leader makes few demands, appears completely uninterested, and basically lets the ecosystem run wild.
Which is a guaranteed recipe for a flood, so the sweet spot must be the third one.
The authoritative or democratic style. Warm but demanding.
And the key here is that they establish clear rules, but they explain the reasons behind them. They give the students rule ownership.
Yes, encouraging independence and shared decision-making. People uphold rules when they understand them.
To establish that climate, a leader has to build their power base, right? The sources mention 3 types of power a teacher can establish on the first day.
First is legitimate power, acting in loco parentis, basically the authority of the institution. Then there's expert power, making people feel you know exactly what you were talking about.
And the third is referent power, giving people a sense of belonging and acceptance.
Right.
But wait, I want to push back on that for a second. If the goal is to show warmth and build referent power, shouldn't a teacher just strive to be everybody's friend? If they like you, they'll listen to you.
It is a super common trap, but the psychology explicitly cautions against it. The source material actually says being buddy-buddy is discouraged. An effective manager must be friendly, but businesslike.
Businesslike. That feels incredibly cold for a classroom.
It sounds cold, but William Glasser's control theory explains why it's necessary. Glasser shows that all human behavior is inspired by trying to satisfy personal wants. Survival, love, power, freedom, fun.
Okay, so how does being businesslike help with that?
Because a businesslike but warm environment satisfies a student's fundamental need for security and fair play. If you're their buddy, boundaries blur. Favoritism is suspected.
Oh, the psychological safety net vanishes.
Exactly. Being businesslike maintains the authority you need to protect the ecosystem without compromising warmth.
It's the difference between a boss who cares about your career and gives clear feedback versus a boss who just wants to go out for drinks and gossip.
One builds trust, the other builds drama.
Wow. Okay. So once that business-like trust is established, we get into preventative maintenance. The sources use that old adage, a stitch in time saves 9.
Being proactive instead of reactive. You have to resolve minor disruptions before they spiral out of control.
And you do that using low-profile control techniques, managing surface behavior without ever stopping the lesson.
Yes. The first one is proximity control.
I love this one. You don't say a word, you just keep teaching, slowly walk over and stand near the off-task student.
Your physical presence makes them feel you. It snaps their attention back without anyone else even noticing.
But if you can't walk over there, you use signal interference.
Nonverbal warnings. Clearing your throat, making sustained eye contact, raising your eyebrows, tilting your head.
A private communication of disapproval. But the most counterintuitive technique has to be planned ignoring.
Yes. Intentionally not taking notice of a mild misbehavior.
Assuming it won't spread to others, obviously. But why ignore it?
Because of B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning. Attention is the currency of a classroom. Minor misbehaviors are transactions looking for that payout of attention.
So by ignoring it, you withhold the reinforcement.
Exactly. Without the payout, the behavior eventually undergoes extinction. It just fades away.
It's like you're a classroom ninja, diffusing a bomb without anyone else in the room realizing the timer was even ticking.
You have to be a ninja because overt punishment is really destructive. If you must punish, the rules are strict. Never punish while angry.
Don't use double standards.
Always give the benefit of the doubt before acting.
And start with a clean slate. Don't hold grudges. Because the ultimate aim isn't just blind obedience, right? It's establishing conditions for self-discipline.
Which is why establishing routines on the very first day, like passing papers or cleaning up, is the ultimate preventative measure. The ecosystem regulates itself.
But that relies heavily on controlling a physical space. And the sources show that physical spaces are evolving rapidly because of technology.
Oh, completely. The physical environment is shifting, and there are 3 levels of integration we see.
First is simple or basic integration.
Right. No substantial change to the method. Using a computer and projector to show a scanned photo instead of passing a small physical picture around.
It's just more visually efficient.
Then there's middle-level integration. Purposeful use to support learning. Students using interactive software or researching on the internet to create a leaflet on a health topic.
But high-level integration is where the paradigm completely inverts. Technology becomes the central tool.
Like a joint science project, where a school in the Philippines uses video conferencing to exchange info on indigenous herbal plants with a school in the USA.
The walls of the classroom dissolve. But does all this technology eventually replace the need for the teacher's management?
Not at all. The source text is clear. Technology is merely a tool. It shifts the paradigm from a one-way lecture to shared learning. The teacher becomes a facilitator, but they still have to design the space to prevent distractions.
Because an iPad connected to the internet is a massive algal bloom waiting to happen.
Exactly. And even practical tech matters, like wireless classroom microphones.
Oh, right. The teacher wears a mic so they don't lose their voice. Everyone can hear clearly.
It reduces daily ambient noise and cuts down on behavioral issues caused by students struggling to hear.
So it's a massive balancing act. We started out looking at how macro ecosystems, like a late experiencing eutrophication, can collapse from a single unmanaged variable.
And we saw how that same fragility exists in the micro ecosystem of a classroom.
We talked about Kunin's with-itness, the ripple effect, being an authoritative leader, and using proactive, low-profile discipline like a classroom ninja.
It all comes down to maintaining the balance.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder. We've learned today that effective management relies incredibly heavily on physical presence, proximity control, making eye contact, arranging chairs for group work.
It's highly physical.
But as education and workplaces increasingly move into entirely virtual environments or rely on asynchronous AI tutors, how do we adapt human-referent power? What does Kunin's with-itness and the ripple effect actually look like in a digital room where you cannot simply walk over and stand next to a distracted learner?
It's a completely different landscape.
It really is. That is a question for you to explore on your own as you navigate your own physical and digital ecosystems. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of learning environments. We will catch you next time.